Well, we are honored to welcome Professor Bob Wood and several students from Ukrainian Catholic University with us today. Bob, I believe, is in Lviv right now, and I'll have the ladies introduce to us where they are Zooming from. But as a brief introduction, Bob Wood currently resides in Lviv, Ukraine, and is teaching at Ukrainian Catholic University. He teaches 2 sessions of Critical World Issues, a class that is presented to sociology, psychology, and political science students. After growing up in Kalamazoo, Michigan, he earned a BA in history from Michigan State University and an MA in political science from Western Michigan University. He taught both high school and secondary education for nearly 30 years in the Lakeshore area, and we're happy to have him. Last time he was here in the summer, he was here in person, but he has now gone back to Ukraine and is joining us virtually. So I will allow Bob to introduce his students and facilitate the beginning of our conversation today, and we'll then open it up to each of you with questions that you might have. In order for your questions to be heard by our guests, we kindly ask that you raise your hand and wait for the microphone to come to you. Virtual attendees, if you have any questions that you'd like to share with our guests, you can relay them in the chat window, and Mary Ellen and Gloria will relay them on your behalf. So I will encourage Bob to come off mute and welcome him and the students with us. And please, you might not be able to hear it virtually, but a round of applause for our guests for joining us today.
Hey.
There we go, Bob. I think we can hear you.
Yes. Hello, people. How are you all? Can they hear me?
We can hear you, yes.
You can hear me. It's good to be here. We had such a good time with you all this summer. I recognize some of you from this summer, and that was a really, really special experience. Thanks for inviting us back. We really, really appreciate it. We had a great time, and we hope to do the same thing tonight. I'm teaching at UCU, and the 4 students that are with us tonight, 2 of them were with us in the summer. And we have a couple of new people that you didn't get to talk with in the summer. And I'll introduce all 4 of the young ladies that are with us here tonight. And any questions you have, ask them. So first, Olha is a 4th year psychology student. She was in my class last year. And she is the most prepared student that I have ever had the pleasure of teaching. And I don't know if Ola was at HASP last time. I don't think you were. Were you, Ola?
She was, yes. Yeah, journalist.
Okay. Oh, she was. Okay, she was. That was at a different time then. Okay. And Irina. I met Irina we have clubs at UCU, and she's in, I think, aren't you in, what faculty are you in, Irina?
I'm a sociology student.
Okay, she's a sociology student, and she is involved in helping animals a lot, and she's really awake, and she's aware. All of these young people are aware, and I think that they can do a lot to give you an insight to what's going on right now in Ukraine. Third, we have Cassandra. Cassandra is studying to be a journalist she's left UCU, but she's at what university are you at now, dear?
Lviv Polytechnic University.
Yes, and she is studying to be a journalist, and I get to visit her hometown this weekend. Yes, thank you. And we have a new student. She is in my class this year, Diana, and Diana has been doing a lot of work volunteering. And a lot of work volunteering out in Kharkiv, and she is possibly possibly, crossing fingers, going to visit the United States for 2 weeks because her brother-in-law is going to be elevated to a bishop's position in Philadelphia. And so she may be coming to the States for 2 weeks in December. We'll find out. So yeah, great young people, and I'll just let them talk about themselves. So whoever would like to go first, go first.
All right, I'll go first. You said introduced, right?
Yeah, just say hi.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Cassandra, and I'm 20 years old. I'll turn 21 in 2 weeks. And I'm from small town in west part of Ukraine, Volhynia region. I am former student of sociology program. Now I'm journalism student. And this year I finished writing my first manuscript, and I'm waiting for feedback from publishers. And also I'm interested in politics and pop culture. And I think that's it for now. And thank you for being here.
Cassandra, can you tell us where you're joining us from?
From Lviv.
Thank you.
We're
Olha.
all in Lviv. We're all in Lviv here.
Good to know. Thank you. Olha, would you like to go next?
Yeah, sure. So hi, everyone. Really glad to see you all here, to hear you all, so just to join the meeting. My name is Olha. I am 21 years old. Right now, I am on my final year of studies at Ukrainian Catholic University. So I'm a 4-year psychology student, as Mr. Wood has mentioned it, but also my another passion is journalism, and I'm especially, I think that I would like to be devoted to human rights and covering it probably in the future. And right now, in regard to Russia's invasion, so there will definitely be a need to cover it in regard to Ukraine. So I'll be glad to help to probably shed some light on it. Thank you.
Irina?
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm so happy to be here and to see you all here. My name is Irina. I'm 18 years old. I'm a second-year student at Ukrainian Catholic University. As I have already said, a sociology program. It is true that I'm a big fan of animals, especially dogs. That's why I volunteer with dogs a lot. I'm planning to organize a huge project in Ukraine, which is connected with veterinarian field with dogs, and we are also going to connect with American volunteers who will teach our veterinarians to help our dogs from occupied territories. Again, so happy to be here, and that's it.
Diana, we have not met you before, so we'd love to hear more about you.
Thank you all. My name is Diana. I am a student of Ukrainian Catholic University, a third-year student of the program Social Work. I'm 19 years old, and something about me, I'm volunteering since 14 years old. I started my volunteering way in ecology statement. Then I started to volunteer with military guys, with soldiers. So now I'm regularly visiting Kharkiv region and the occupied territories. So I'm going to visit them next time in 2 weeks. And I hope that my work with the children who lived during occupation on the territories will be productive and will be valuable as for me, as for them as well. So I'm happy to be here, and I thank you all for coming and waiting for your questions.
Thank you all. Bob, would you like to get us started, or would you like to jump in with some questions right away? Looks like you're muted, Bob. If you want to unmute yourself, we can hear you again. Sorry, Bob, you are muted. If you want to unmute yourself, we can hear you speaking.
Okay, I got to a
Here we
different
go.
screen. It was just too awkward. So
No worries.
yeah,
See
okay.
you again.
Okay.
You can
There we
take
go.
questioning if
This-
you'd like, or whatever your preference is.
No, go right ahead. I think what was really cool about when we were here in the summer was that it just kind of moved the way it needed to move. And you had such a interesting audience, and the questions were relevant. And I felt kind of like that it just went where it had to go. And so you can feel free to moderate it, but let's let people ask what they want to ask.
Sure. Well, we will open it up here in just a second. Why don't we just kick off with a quick question for all of you as Ukrainian students, and Bob as now living in Lviv. What is one thing that you think all of us here in the United States should be aware of that maybe we're not aware of today?
I can take that.
Go ahead, Bob.
I think that you have to be painfully aware of the precarious nature of Ukraine's position when it comes to support from the West. Politically, the world is so in chaos right now with what's going on in Gaza, and Ukraine is here on the sidelines, and it doesn't feel stable from this position. The support of the United States is well, the United States doesn't have a Republican Party in the House of Representatives, and so it's difficult to have anything passed, let alone aid for Ukraine. And I just don't want Ukraine to be forgotten by people in the United States as the events of Gaza unfold. Not that shouldn't be critical, because I think it should be extremely critical, and I do think that people should pay attention to it, watch it, and be critical of where our country stands in such positions. But there's people dying on the front in Ukraine. There's a lot of people dying on the front, and a lot of people sacrificing, and just please don't forget that this war is going on.
Cassandra, we'll invite you to share with us something that you think we should be aware of that we may not be at this point.
Yeah, basically, it's the same. I wanted to say what Bob already said, but I want to repeat. And I'm sure that all of you know that war is still happening because you're here. But it feels like a world is tend to forget what's happening within 3 months. Like they, someone pretends to care, someone cares within like 2-3 months, maybe half of a year, and then tends to forget it. And so, yeah, the important thing is not to forget that war is still happening. And if you can't donate, talking is also such an important thing. And I'm glad that you're here because I can tell that you care.
Olha, can you give us your perspective, not only as a student, but as a journalist, perhaps, as we're trying to navigate misinformation and disinformation from across the world?
Thank you, but just like a journalist to be. But I would like to add one simple yet very important thing about naming the perpetrator, because we always tend to think and say that there's something in Ukraine. There's a turmoil, there's a chaos, there's so many things going on right now, and they're all like heart-wrenching. They're just terrible. But you should always remember to name the perpetrator so that we can held accountable all those who are responsible for the terrible war crimes. So every article, every mention, every single conversation about Ukraine should not be confined about Ukraine only, but also about naming the perpetrator, so that people do not forget that they should not have anything in common with Russia as a terrorist state, because it still is.
We have a question from one of our online participants, so I'll relay that question through Gloria.
Have any of you students had family that have been directly affected by the war?
Any of you have family members or friends? Yeah, Diana, please.
Yes, so my whole family and my relatives are in military. As for now, mostly most of them are in military for more than 10 years, and my close friends are soldiers from the 21st of February in 2022. And the worst thing that may happen is death, because like lots of my close friends just they were so brave that they gave their lives for us living in peace, and for us to have opportunity as a students, as just community, to live, to work, to study. So it's a good question, because it means that you cares. And yeah, but it's sad because nowadays mostly all of our relatives are there and they are fighting. And as well, my uncle and my aunt, they were living at occupation, and they have no house, they have no nothing. Now they are living here in Lviv region, hopefully, but after the war, they will not home anymore, because they are just ruins and nothing at all.
Irina, can you share with us how you and your family might have been personally impacted so far?
I just like to mention that every day we also receive emails from our university or in different chats, and every time I'm just praying not to see like the name of my friend, which is military, because usually such emails mean that they are dead, and I lost like more than three. I was just now sitting and counting. I lost like really more than three or near five friends, which I was like with which I had a really close relationship. And it is so hard to understand that your people now are not alive because of Russians.
Bob, what is the responsibility of the university in this particular avenue here when it comes to informing students, keeping students safe? It's a whole nother level than what we have here in the States. Can you talk to us a little bit about what the Ukrainian Catholic University is doing to protect its students and keep them informed?
Yeah, as we are like Catholic university, we usually have like I don't know how to say it in English. It's like special uh event in church to like come, and it's like cemetery, but not. I don't know. Maybe somebody can help me to translate like liturgia.
Liturgy, I think.
Okay, we have like
Liturgy.
liturgy to pray for those who die. Yeah.
And Bob, as an instructor, what do you think your responsibility and what do you think the responsibility of the institution is in informing and protecting its students?
Well, they do a fine. I mean, they have shelters here. We haven't had it, recently there hasn't been many air alarms for October, I don't think. Has there been an air alarm in October? I don't think so. And we're expecting that probably when the winter comes, those will pick up. The university does a real, I mean, the gals can talk to the issue of informing people about those individuals that are in harm's way out on the front. I know the university does a really, really good job at that, but most of that's done in Ukrainian. And so I don't have as much access to that. I do know that for safety's sake, that this university, that the primary objective is to keep its students safe, and they do that. And I would say the second objective is to keep them studying in classes. There's a real effort here to stay in touch, to stay connected, to stay involved, to stay awake. There isn't a hesitation here on this campus by these students. They know what's going on, and they are fully aware of what's going on, and the university is as well.
Olha, can you share some more with us, please?
Yeah, I just wanted to add a little bit more on the role of our university as an institution that provides us with the necessary things that we need during air alarms. So every facility that relates to the entire institution is provided with the high quality basements that we might use to pursue our studies or meetings or anything like that. And also I would like to note that when it comes to official meetings or, for instance, student elections, something like that, we also in regard to safety rules and norms, we might use those basements, which are also places might serve as places that we use to serve meetings or something like that. So we would simply use them because it would be safer for students. So yeah, I would like to stress the role of our university in making it the safest place for all of its students.
Ladies, how comfortable are you with free speech and freedom of expression on campus? Do you feel like you have the ability to stay and protest as you wish, or do you feel like those rights have been limited? Anna, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So, to be honest, I chose UHU 3 years ago because of its values and because of its community, and the most important thing that you can share your thoughts and what is hurt you to your university openly, and you can say whenever you want and protest anything you want. That is why it's quite good because for example, we had an issue that in the beginning of the war that we had no anything to eat while we were in shelters, and we told it to our university administration, and they were working on it. And now when you are on shelter, you can buy some food or take some food, anything you want. So they are open to our thoughts, and they are open to our propositions. That is why it's really valuable. And by the way, I wanted to add to the previous question. So about the shelters, I remember it was on July 6th of this year. So a rocket hit a house that is located like literally 100 meters from our university, and our shelters here served not only for students who escaped from the shock wave, but also it was for the residents of that house who managed to hide in one of our university shelters. So it helped them to save their lives. So it's really cool.
Thank you. Looks like we have another question from one of our virtual attendees. Gloria?
How do you personally cope with the ongoing stress of the loss, the anxiety about the future risks, and the unknowns?
I think that's a great question for our social worker, but we'll start with Cassandra. How do you cope with things directly yourself? Let's start with Cassandra.
Yeah, I think it will sound horrible for you, but I think that, personally speaking of myself, I got used to it. Like, I don't react to the news as I used to before. And yeah, it's all sad, but I don't cry anymore. Not that often, I guess. And it's still heartbreaking, but I think that's the only option to survive, and it's like a safe mode. And I think that I'm just waiting when everything will end, and then I will release all of the emotions.
Diana, curious as to how you as a future social worker will navigate this type of concern and behavior.
Yeah, thank you. So, to be honest, this is typically for Ukrainians just to used to it. So not only Cassandra like this, but all of us, because I remember the first time I was volunteering in Kharkiv. It was the third month of the war. So there were Russian military, like maybe up to 1 kilometer out the Kharkiv, and it was dangerous, truly dangerous. And I was worrying, I was scared, but the next time I was there, I wasn't, because I used to it and I knew that there is no air alarms, and rocket can hit me in 32 seconds, because Kharkiv is the city which located near the border with Russia, so it's like 30 minutes to for the rocket to fly. And we will have this really big problem for Ukrainians, because some of us can have a depression, can have different disorders and mentally disorders, and we need therapy, a lot of therapy. But the better thing that can help us is to do not forget about how can we help to for our military and to volunteer. So for me, and as a social worker, volunteering is the first thing that can help me to stay brave and to not get upset totally. And thanks to Mr. Wood, now I'm going to therapist and trying to talk with him about my problems, mental problems, because it's almost 2 years of the war, and mostly all of us have the feeling that it will not end in 1 year or two, and it can continue for 10 years. And our war started not 2 years ago, but in 2014, that the most hurtful thing. So I think the better that we can do for ourselves is to put our anger to help our military, to volunteer, to donate, to do everything that possible. That is something that just can help us as a nation. And then it's probably the problem of unknowing in the future. It will hit us, but we don't know how exactly and how fast it will, but it will. And it is now for some of the people. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you for sharing that with us. Anyone in the room have a question they'd like to ask directly? Yeah, 1 second here, Lyle. We'll have a microphone come to you. Wait just 1 second, please.
Yes, you girls are really amazing. But what I wanted to ask, there are Christians, excuse me, in Ukraine, and there are Christians in Russia. You have influence from the Catholic Church, and you have influence from the Russian Orthodox Church. Religion, it's a question about religion, and I don't know if you can answer it, but are the Christians in both the Russian and the Catholic Church, are they on the same page or thinking in terms of what is going on in this conflict between Ukraine and Russia?
Ladies, just
is there any commonality in the Christian religion covering that whole area as to what is just and what is right and who's I don't know if you can answer that, but
Yeah, thank you, Lyle. Ladies, I'm just going to rephrase that for you. We're going to talk more about this in depth with our group next week, but we'd be curious to find out your thoughts on the role of religion in the conflict now, and if you've noticed if that plays a pivotal role, if you see the religions in Ukraine are united, or if there's more schism than there is unification. Olha, why don't you go ahead and get started for us?
Yeah, I would like to start from the fact there's actually a lot to say here, but Russians, so most of Russians, they think and they deem that their war is like a sacred war against not only Ukraine, but also against like entire civilization, because especially when we're talking about Western civilization, because Western civilization is like rotten. It is not meant to be. It is not as sacred, as pure as Russian model of civilization, because they deem their whole culture is built on civilizational basis. And when we're talking about politics, which is hugely like intertwined with their religion, I can just name 2 or 3 facts here, because when you're going to some central churches of Moscow, you can see their political figures being actually drawn on the icons. So they paint their politicians on icons because they deem that they serve as saviors of the world, and they want to liberate Russia, and not only Russia, but the entire world and Ukraine in a sense, because the whole Western civilization is a threat, is like an existential threat to Russian society. And their war, their policies, and their politicians, which are hugely supported by the large amount of Russians, so they came to power as those who are to defend them, to liberate them, and to just destroy those Western terrific values like that. So I think girls have something to add here.
Yeah, Cassandra, would you like to expand?
Yeah, I actually never noticed that Ukrainians ever divided people in terms of their religion, but it's important to say that we have Orthodox Church, which is majority, and it's Ukrainian and Russian Orthodox Church, and then a Greek Catholic Church, so we're technically not fully like under the influence of Pope. But yeah, so majority is Orthodox Ukrainian Church, and when the war started, we started to negotiate like the closing of Moscow Church, which is, I think, the right thing to do, because I can't deny that there are people who are still protesting next to the Moscow churches, and you can tell that they're being brainwashed, because I'm not really religious person. I don't go to church, but you can tell the narratives. And I had one classmate who used to go to Russian Moscow church, and he used to support Russia until the full scale invasion started. And now his dad is on the front line, and now he understands that he was brainwashed, and he apologized in front of the classmates, because he used to speak to us with Russian narratives. So I think that now all of the churches are more united than they've ever been. And I think that closing of Moscow Church is helping that. Yeah.
Thank you. Diana, would you like to add?
Yeah, sure. So I also wanted to add about the unity of our church. So in Ukraine, we have Orthodox Church, Catholic Church, Roman Catholic, and Ukrainian Catholic Church. So the most important thing that Ukrainian Church and Orthodox Church were kind of fighting, and because Russian Orthodox Church do not see Ukrainian Catholic Church as a church and as a religion. So what I have seen from the beginning of the war, that Ukrainian Orthodox Church and Ukrainian Catholic Church, they became united. they started to pray together. They started to they started new calendar together. So now we will have our Christmas as the whole world, because before that we had it the 7th of January. Now we will have it the 25th of December. So we became more unique. Yes, we have some problems with Roman Catholic Church, because Ukrainians do not understand how Pope Francis can, I'm not sure, support Russian, because he's not supporting them. He just have some text that was written by someone else, and he just reading that. But we have a lot of questions to Roman Catholic Church, because they can say that as for Russian Orthodox Church, because they can say that it's not only like Russians' fault. So, but it's mostly a question for them, not for Ukrainian church. And it's really valuable thing that we became united, and we have no any fighting between Orthodox and Catholic anymore. Especially from, as I said before, Ukrainian Orthodox and Catholic Church. And about Russian Orthodox Church, so we have them in Ukraine even now, and they still supporting Russia. And maybe some of you have seen on the news that Russian rockets hits the Cathedral Church of Russian Orthodox Church, and their Pope priest told that it was rocket from God, not from Russian, and we all mistaken. So it's like kind of I cannot even say any words how to name it and how to call it. So it's funny because they are just like they are funny. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions in the room? Yes, one in the back here.
You seem to all have, or most of you have already planned your careers, but I meet with some younger Ukrainian students regularly. Could you suggest what they should do to prepare for their future and for the future of Ukraine?
Irina, please.
I have older brother. He's 20 years old, and I can tell you about, for example, him plans, because we all here are girls and we can go abroad, but boys cannot, and they cannot plan anything because they are not sure like if next day they will become military. Because now only students like are protected from the army. And talking about the future, we usually do not build plans for now. We can, of course, we can have some trips or something like that, but like, and I don't know, any future huge plans are not okay for me, for example, now, because I can not suggest what will happen next time. For example, for the first time when Lviv was bombed and then we had electricity problems, I had like plans for a great trip to Kiev. But as you understand, it didn't happen because it was problems in electricity in the whole country, and we were bombed every day. So trips can be canceled anytime. You cannot have plans, boys especially. And talking about dreams or something like that, we can just probably volunteer and help ourselves with different activities, like to, I don't know, spend all our free time with doing something, just not to think about the war and not to become more afraid of our future.
Irina, just to clarify what you said there, men are conscripted and they have required service, but women do not. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, we can like Cassandra probably can answer this question.
Yes, I think
Military service, Cassandra. Can you clarify that?
yeah, not all men are permitted, but we can't deny that one day it might happen that every single man will serve in the army. Women are not permitted to go to the army and they can leave a country, and the man can't. Even though they're not in the military, they can't leave Ukraine right now.
Thank you. We have another question here up front.
Yeah, there's been several people that have left, as you mentioned, women and children who have left Ukraine. And there are also many men that are now conscripted in the military or involved in the war effort. And I'm just wondering if that's had any major impact on what I'll call the services that are available, the fire department, the rebuilding of buildings, the collection of garbage, the electricity, the sewers, all of those kinds of things that are normally a part of, what a city would do. Are those things still are they still functioning, or are there parts of the country where they're not receiving the same kind of level that they had been receiving before?
Diane, you've been in Kharkiv quite a few times, right? I mean, I can't imagine that there's many services that are as they were before the war. That place is in pretty bad shape, isn't it?
Let Cassandra go first, and then I will add about Kharkiv and about the situation.
Yeah,
Okay.
Cassandra, the question was about social services and how cities are still functioning.
Yeah, I won't talk about the east part of Ukraine because I haven't visited it since the full-scale invasion started, but I will talk about the central Ukraine and west part of Ukraine mostly, and Kyiv, of course. Everything's still happening. Life goes on. Everything's functioning as much as we can do it. Restaurants are open. We go to the cinema. Of course, streets are being cleaned. We try to live normal life, and we can't stop fully because economic will fall down, and we can't let us lost economy more than it already happened because of the war, and people still need to work. We need to walk around on clean streets. Kyiv, same thing, even though it's been bombed more often than Lviv, of course, but it's still happening. Lives go on and people work, have fun even. And yeah, I think that Diana can add about Kharkiv.
Yeah, sure. So, as Cassandra said, here in West Ukraine, west part of Ukraine, we have everything good working here. But there in Kharkiv, the first year it was hard, and all the houses, everything were bombed. But now, the administration of the city, they are working really good. I remember the last time, it was the beginning of the September, I was in Kharkiv, and there were a massive rocket attack, and it was horrible. It was really horrible because, as I said before, there are no air alarm because the time that rockets are striking, like, it's 32 seconds, and they have no time to turn on air alarm. So you never know when and where rockets will attack. And there were some houses, like 2-3 houses heated, but I was living Kharkiv 4 days after that, and all of that stuff were rebuilt. I was shocked because they live like 45 kilometers to Belgorod, is city in Russia, and they are not worrying. They just rebuild their city. They are working to look good. They are working on how they need to be shown to the world. But there are still some houses, and especially on the north part of Kharkiv, that on the way to the Russia border, it's heated horribly, and it looks horribly. But the problem is that, not problem, but the main thing is that mostly mothers with their children are not living there, because children have online studying in their schools, or they can study here offline in Lviv region, in Ivano-Frankivsk region, so in west part of Ukraine, and there they cannot. Also, they have problems with electricity as well. So there are times when, for example, the one part of the city were heated by Russians, and they had no electricity for 1 month, and it was winter, so it was horribly cold there. That is why the most big amount of children are living or abroad or on western part of Ukraine. That's really cool. And as Cassandra said before, we have cinemas, we have restaurants open here in Lviv, and it is as well open there in Kharkiv. I was shocked because they, as I said, do not know when the rocket will hit them, but they are still open. They are living their lives because they understand that if they will, if they most of the time are in some fear, they will not live their lives, and there will not be anything without fear, just fear. So yeah, how I answered your question.
Thank you. Thank you. John, you have a question in the back?
I do. It's a two-part question about the same issue. How do you think the war will end? And what do you hope will happen?
Hey, ladies, that's a heavy question for you, but how do you think the war will end, and what do you hope happens? Cassandra, why don't you go first?
Yeah, the answer is simple: victory. I'm sure that Ukraine will win, because justice should win. And I really hope that territories which were occupied, or Crimea, which was annexed, will be part of Ukraine again. And just simple as that, because that's what we're fighting for.
Diana.
Yeah, I want to add to Cassandra's words. So we have no any way to end. It's just victory, as she said, because as I said before, or my all my relatives, close friends, my even boyfriend, they are all in military, and I'm trying to keep contact with them every day when they have network connection. And there will be one big question. If we do not have the win of the Ukraine, the victory, for whom and for what all of our friends, our sons, our dads, our brothers passed away, for whom and for what they died, and why didn't we tell Russia in the beginning of the war in 2014, okay, we have no reason to have a revolution of dignity, just be happy we will be occupied by you. No, it's not. And we will, I think we will do everything that we can to have just victory. It can be in 10 years, it can be in 15 years, but it will be. And it's only one way of the ending of the war. Thank you.
Olha, do you agree with that sentiment that victory is the only answer? And if so, what does a quote unquote new Ukraine look like?
Yeah, I would like to agree with girls on the points, but justice sure will prevail, because it is the only way how we can build like a rule of law like in the entire world. But what I also think is, yes, we're all overwhelmed to think, we're all excited to think about the end of the war. But one thing that comes to mind when you think of like ending it all and defeating Russia is a huge amount of rehabilitation, because what we will all need is that, like, physically and mentally. So now we have so many people who are wounded by war. These are kids, these are elderly, these are young people who can just like get employed and rebuild the country. These are severe cases, because we have also so many people who were conscripted and who will be veterans to be. We now have so many veterans, and they will all face huge PTSD. So yeah, post-traumatic stress disorder, I mean. And all of them, when we were thinking about all of them, with the end of the war, they kind of may lose the sense of life. Because for them, psychologically, right now, as they exist on the front line, as they pull a trigger, as they deoccupy the territories, this is the sense of their life, and this is existential. And after that, this is like a SOS, and they don't know what to do with that. And after that, as we know from the illustration of the US example of your country, we have post-war high suicide rates. We even had those suicide rates when the first Russia's invasion started back in 2014. So many people coming back from the front line, they didn't know what to do with their lives. They didn't know how to reintegrate in communities, in the civilian life, and they ended up dying. So what I think is that we will need a huge work on psychological first, and then medical rehabilitation for people, because this will be the outmost concern and issue for all of us. And I think we will need a lot of foreign support in that, and experts in the field.
Olha, you ladies were in grade school during the invasion of Crimea. Can you compare the two situations at all? Not just the healing process that you just described, Olha, but just overall culturally, can you explain the difference between these two different invasions?
Yes, so I would say that even sociologically, like the most simple way to describe it, it's way different. So the first phase, like stage of Russia's occupation, like long-lasting occupation, was way more different, because not even like all the people who are part of Ukrainian society realized it fully, like were conscientious about it, because of this Russian lobby, because of Russian influence, because of many people who were still loyal toward Russia, who had sentiments toward them, because we had those pro-Russian political parties, which only like incited all of that. So, but still, the majority of Ukrainians, I think 17%, and it goes up, they realize that this is the current annexation of Crimea. This is the ongoing war in Donbass. These are not separatists or something, how many Western media put it, but these are Russian so Russian military who come from all over Russia, and so they arrange all of that. Yeah, but still, it is not in any way comparable to what we are facing now, because it is a full-scale invasion, and everyone feels the mark of it. And we have so many cases where people return from the peaceful spots, like all over the world, because they know that this is a huge existential threat, which is not like limited to their nation, but to the world, because we all know that if Russia is not defeated, it will go like farther. It will go to Poland, it will go to Romania, it will go to Baltic states. It will jeopardize like the legal order on European continent. So this is huge. And I think statistically, most of people worldwide realize the threat that it poses, if that answers to the question.
Yes, thank you. We have another question from one of our online participants.
How do you feel about ceding parts of traditional Ukraine territory in order to end the war?
Bob, any thoughts on that?
It's not my country. I think that these four girls would be far more qualified to answer that question than me.
Cassandra, curious your thoughts here. Would you be willing, or do you think the country should be willing to annex parts of its territories for the sake of ending the war?
Yeah, I have the rhetoric question. How would you feel to live your life without your left leg? Just simple as that. That's impossible because, as Diana already said, that our relatives have died, and they've been dying during last 9 years. And I remember when I was in the 5th grade, and I heard the news that my classmate's dad was killed in 2014, and how my classmates and I were crying, and the boy whose dad died were just sitting silently. I can't imagine that we can let them have the territories. And they already did that in 2014, and we've been fighting ever since. And that crisis, that situation was freezed. And you can see that after 8 years, they decided that they want to have more of Ukraine. So we cannot have guarantees that if we'll say, okay guys, you have Donbass and Crimea, and let's live peacefully. 10 years, it might be 10 years, maybe 2 years, maybe 20 years, let's say, but they will and eventually want more. So again, can you live your life without left leg? No.
Can I say one thing? People have to realize that this Russia, Aleppo, Syria, Georgia, Belarus, Crimea, Donbass, the Caucasus, there isn't any, I cannot imagine trusting the Russian state in any way, shape, or form to have a legitimate agreement. They haven't shown on a world stage to be trustworthy in any way at all. That would be my thought. And I'm sorry, it's again your guys' country, but I just don't trust the Russian government.
Thank you. One question up here in front, George.
Добрый день, ladies. Did I say that right?
Yeah, it's a good job.
Okay, thank you. Well, I must say I'm proud. I'm very proud of my Ukrainian heritage. My mom was born in Lviv. I'm not going to take the whole time to talk about my history, but just so you have a sense that I was very much anticipating this meeting and having a chance to meet and talk with some representatives, young people from Ukraine. And I can say, having listened for the last hour or so, that I'm very confident in the future of Ukraine because of you four. So very, very happy to meet you. And the question I do have, and I'll have a comment for Yarina too at the end of her question. But how does Ukraine feel? How do the people of Ukraine feel about the support or lack thereof from the West in this war effort?
If I understood you right, you mean like how do we feel about the lack of support from the Europe? Yeah.
Europe, the United States, and other parts of the world. Yes.
Yeah, we always need support. Like we always need money, and we always need like everything, which will be, I don't know, okay for us to help our soldiers to buy something for our country. And talking about the lack of support, maybe somebody remembers when I said that we are not like responsible for high prices in Europe. I can just say, and maybe girls can continue, that we always need more because it is not enough. And we, of course, we appreciate a lot, really a lot, that Americans and Europeans help us with everything. But really, it is not enough for us to win. And of course, it will be not enough then to rebuild our country. And here is also the point that Ukrainians are going to move to improve our all our fields, and we really want to have different collaborations with other countries, but we cannot like pay attention on other problems except of like war. And that's why we firstly need to win, and then think about all collaborations and communications. That's why we need your help.
Yeah, I agree with Cassandra's comments too about the war should go on until the territory taken in 2014 is recovered as well. That's when the war started.
Olha, did you have some additional comments there? Please.
Yeah, thank you. So I think that this lack of support that we presume, like, yeah, we might presume that this might be called as a lack of support, comes first and foremost from lack of empathy and understanding. Because yes, as a Ukrainian, for me, it is really frustrating to go through Western media and sometimes American, British media, which are ranked so high and which are so appreciated by large audiences. So this is really frustrating to go through the columns and see something like that. So something like Ukraine accuses Russia of doing something, which is such a great example of both sadism, because this is actually second year into Russia's full-scale invasion, and somebody still needs like justification to Russia being terrorist in all of its actions when it attacked civilian infrastructure, critical infrastructure, when it committed direct cases of genocide, so many murders of civilian innocent people, and so people still, I would say they dare to think and presume that Ukrainians on their second year of invasion, they might want to bomb themselves. You hear it, it's like it's I don't know, it's not just like ridiculous, it's just frustrating to read it, to go through all of these columns, as I've said. So just to name a few, so this was a New York Times work when they doubted that it was Russia's fault that Russia blew up Novakhovka Dam in June, so this summer, which was then deemed true because, yes, so of course, this territory is occupied by Russia, and they were the only ones to have the access to the territory, so they blew it up. and they deployed a weapon of mass destruction back then. But still, Western media, they dared to doubt it. And then people reading that, they start to think that, okay, probably there is not such thing as like black and white in your war. So probably you are guilty too, which is actually an example of victim blaming too. But when you suffer from genocide, it is not how it should work. I think, yeah, so you need to realize that we as Ukrainians, we need more compassion and understanding from Western people. And also what I want to add is that, so explicitly we have all these kinds of support. So financial support, so we have military support, so we have diplomatic support, so all those means of support. But implicitly, there are so many cases where countries, so they continue to tolerate and embrace Russia in so many ways. One of them is giving floor to Russian representatives. For Russia, so sport representatives at the Olympics. But if you go into their biographies, you will see that they have linked to their government and they support Russia's invasion. And I have a question: why should they have this floor to represent themselves? So we give this right for terrorists to represent themselves on an international stage. This is also infuriating and frustrating. And also we give floor to Dasha Navalnaya, who is the daughter of Alexei Navalny. You all know who that is, I think, a so-called Russian oppositionist. And so Dasha Navalnaya has a floor to speak on behalf of Russian society on an international stage, and can speak about her stance on Russia's war. But any Ukrainian representative so cannot do it. I don't know how should that work and how does that work, but that is infuriating and frustrating. And this also is a sign of this lack of support, so implicitly. Thank you.
Speaking of how the West frames this conflict, your president Volodymyr Zelensky is somewhat of a symbol of strength and heroism. Is that a perspective shared by each of you? And do Ukrainians also support the government in its current stance in its policy decisions? Go ahead, Cassandra.
Well, let's start with Zelensky. Before the war started, I wasn't a fan of him, honestly, because I thought that he was not really the person to be ahead of a country which is already in war. But when the war started, he showed himself as a good leader, and I do share this opinion. He's doing good work, and he showed that he can take a lead in this war. And I cannot say that I am super satisfied with all of our representatives, but I think that the parties are united for one goal, and that's the main thing, and that's the most important thing for now.
Do you feel supported by your government in ways that you are protected, not just physically with military might, but with resources, food, that type of thing?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Good. Any other questions from the room? Yeah, one here in front.
Actually, two. You ladies have been fortunate in your continuing your education. Had you many classmates that weren't able to share in this kind of a future? And the other question is, do you ladies get to vote?
Thank you. Just to repeat those for you ladies in case you didn't hear. The first is you've been fortunate to continue your studies throughout the conflict. Do you have any friends or family members that have not been able to do so or have left school? And after that, can you talk about the voting rights that you might have or don't have when the next election will take place?
May I ask about the voting? You mean, can we vote right now, or you mean in general, girls? because I don't understand.
Yeah, can you just explain the voting rights that you have as a citizen, whether that's as a female or as at what age someone has the right to vote, and maybe explain the next round of voting that will be taking place? Go ahead, Olha.
Yeah, so just to put it simply, when we all like turn 18, we have those rights. We have this political right to take part in any kind of political election. So be that presidential election or local election. So like regardless, male, female. So just 18, you're 18, so you have this right. And also to you have this second part of your question. Can you please repeat that?
Second part was you've been able to continue going to school throughout the conflict. Has that been the case for most of your friends, or have you had close family members or friends that have had to withdraw from school for any various reasons? Go ahead, Yarina.
Yeah, I do not have friends who were like, I don't know, taken from school to the military or from university, but we have a lot of cases when people were going to go abroad for their master's degree, but they just couldn't because, especially boys, because they cannot leave the country, as I said before. And also, I still have only one friend who was studying in our university, and this year he just left the university because he wanted to go to army. So students are usually like all students are allowed to study, and students cannot be taken to army, but they can if they want by themselves.
Thank you, Diana.
Yeah, I wanted to add that I have mentioned before about my uncle and aunt who were living in occupation. So they have a son. He's 16 years old, and when he was 15 years old, he was living in occupation for half a year, and he have no choice and no possibility to study in school at school. So people who are living at the occupation, they cannot study because they cannot even go out from their houses. But as girl said before, we have a possibility on the territories which are not occupied to study, all of us. And if you are under 25 years old, you can study as girls, as boys. And if you do not want to study, but you want to defend your country, you just can have an opportunity to get a gap year or just left your university school, but you cannot go to the military when you're under 18. So you can leave your university, college, etc., and you just can go and be a soldier.
Thank you, Cassandra. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Bob.
This was just really inspirational to me. I have 34 students, and at the beginning of the year, I sat down with each of them and spoke. We talked extensively. I think there were 6 or 7 that were abroad because of the war for refugee status, and they came back. And I had a number of them whose parents, this just amazed me. I had a couple gals for sure, one from Prague, who insisted that they wanted to come back. They wanted to come back to their home country. They wanted to go to school in Ukraine. Their parents did not want that to happen, but the students still came. And I thought that just amazed me. One, because the student wanted to come, and 2, because the parent at the end of the day deferred to what their child wanted and allowed them to come back. That just to me typifies the courage of young people here, and the way that so many of these parents, I don't know, admire and respect the decisions of their children. I just thought that was, I just find that so inspirational for both the students and for the parents.
Thanks, Bob. Cassandra, do you have some additional comments on that?
Yeah, I wanted to add about the elections, because I believe you asked if we'll have elections in the nearest future, right?
Yes.
So yeah, we won't, because as even Zelensky said, and I think that a majority of the population in Ukraine supports that decision, that we cannot have elections when the war is happening, because it can be easily falsified. Russia tried to falsificate our elections when the war was not happening back in 2010. So we cannot have like guarantees that they won't do it again. And because of the part of the territories are occupied, it's technically impossible to manage to do the elections. So that's what I wanted to add.
Thank you. And ladies, we know that this conversation has not been easy, and we've touched on some very difficult subjects. But to close, as we end our time together, can you tell us something that's brought you joy or happiness in the last few weeks, whether that be a movie, whether that be time with friends, because we want to make sure that people are not only aware of the tragedy that's going on in Ukraine and the perpetrators behind it, but also that life, as you said, does go on. And we're curious, what are some of those things that have brought you joy or happiness? Irina, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I would like to say that one of my stray dogs, 3 weeks ago, had puppies, and now I have 2 puppies, and they make me really happy, because as I said, I'm a great fan of dogs. Now I have 5. And yes, they make me happy, and also it's about people, because even when you study hard, you work hard, then you have people around who will always support you. Even talking about Mr. Wood and girls, recently we had a meeting with coffee and interesting talks. It was great. It is just great to understand that you can have time when you can stop and just relax and do something which is not your routine. Thank you.
Thank you. Cassandra?
First of all, thank you for the question, because it made me realize that I am actually happy from time to time. I think that I had 2 events. Recently, my dad's childhood friend came back from a front line for a week, and we had, with traditional Ukrainian meeting with baked meat, and we had conversations, and it was nothing about the war, like all good times. And also my friends and I went to the Carpathian Mountains with hiking, and we picked mushrooms and baked them, and it was an amazing weekend. And yeah, I actually am happy from time to time. So thank you for asking the question.
Thank you. Olha.
Thank you. I just felt really blessed that I could celebrate my 21st birthday like peacefully when being in Ukraine, because just to gather with my relatives, with my close friends, not to be able to hear air raid alarms, so anything, because last year it was one of the most dreadful days, because it was the first day that Russia has hit our energy infrastructure, and I had so I couldn't reach my relatives. This was the time when I was abroad. I was in the UK, and I actually couldn't get the access to any of my parents, any of my close friends. So I didn't know where they going. It was terrible. And right now it's not that it's relatively peaceful for sure, but I was just happy that this was one day for retreat, and it was yeah, this felt like a great blessing to me, and I had a great time too.
Thank you. Diana, what's something that's brought you happiness or joy recently? I know you're possibly considering a trip to the United States, but what else has been on your mind?
No, because I'm not have a visa yet, so I'm not going to USA yet. But I was thinking about this few minutes, and to be honest, the only thing that came to my mind was 2 weeks. It was the best moment in my life when my boyfriend, when my all relatives, when my cousin, my two cousins, my aunt, my uncle, they came home from the war for their vacation, and we were just sitting together in our house, and we were laughing. We were thanking God that we are all alive and that we have possibility. Maybe it was the last possibility, but it was. And we had a chance to be together, to touch each other, to feel that moment. So it was, I would even say it was the best moment in my life 2 weeks ago, for 2 weeks. The best moment in my life, even like for the whole life, not for the recent time. Thank you.
Diana, Irina, Cassandra, Olha, thank you so much for joining us. You will be in our thoughts and in our prayers, and we so much appreciate the time that you've shared with us and giving your time. Bob, thank you for making this possible for all of us. And I would echo everyone in this room when we say thank you and applaud you all for the work that you do. Please stay in touch with us. We'd love to hear updates from you in the future as things progress. And we wish you all the absolute best as you have birthdays and trips and other things upcoming. And please think of us. We'll always be here hoping for you and wishing the best. So take care.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks so much.
Thank you all for joining us. We appreciate this is session 3. We hope you can join us next week again as we continue our conversation with the role of religion in this conflict. Have a great afternoon. Take care, Bob.